Mark, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hello, Stephen. Thank you very much. And I guess I was ready to get kind of like makeup and get mic'd up
Yeah,
there
please.
before.
What's happening? What's happening? It's a carpet behind you, or what is it?
Oh yes. Well, I'm in San Francisco now. I spend part of my time in Europe and part of my time in Mexico. So I have a tendency to kind of bring things from Mexico here and hang them on the wall behind me. But, yes. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I hope you can see the audience a little bit. I just turned the laptop around so you have more view into the faces, see what's happening. If you get fall asleep or so. I hope not. When I was looking at your personal website, I was quite fascinated by what you told us about yourself. You're not living on a boat right now, don't you?
Oh, in fact, I am. It's been 13 years now, and
okay.
When I'm here in San Francisco, I have a small boat, and I'm in the office now at the marina. And then in Mexico, I have a boat there. So my wife, who's a 14th generation sailor, we're raising our babies on the boat. And meanwhile, I live in economy class as I fly around. So yeah, still a sailor.
Okay, that's what's interesting. I found it quite fascinating. What did you say in your website? Just let me have a look. You sang poetry with robots in Tokyo. Why did you do that thing here? Singing.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of a strange bird, I must admit. My background, originally, maybe I could go through some of this. I was in San Francisco in 1993 and helped to develop what was the third .com website at the time, well.com. And then I went on to found my first virtual reality company from 1995 to 98. Worked at Xerox PARC and Stanford Research Institute, got interested in artificial intelligence, and then moved to Europe for a while, lived in Paris, had a painting gallery. I wrote a few different books, and around the book that you're referring to, We Robot, I was out in Tokyo. I was interviewing maybe 7 or 8 different robotics shops. And there were several different very curious systems that I came across. Some of them were there for poetry or pornography or postpartum tea. But in the end, what I was really doing was researching human-robot interaction. And how is it that we as people communicate with software? How do we communicate with systems that might appear to be human but actually aren't? And so yes, what I was really doing was researching some of the past work. And thanks for digging into that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it sounds you have been doing that for quite a long time right now, right? So
yeah, it's been about 20 years in virtual reality and artificial intelligence. I'm a Dungeons and Dragons geek, an aging one at that, and so I've always been interested in interactive narrative and how to make characters that we can talk to that have faces. And then in the last 6 years, since about 2011, 7 years, I've been interested in blockchain and how we can put these systems on the blockchain so that they're more trusted.
Okay. Just let me repeat a few sentences from your website, okay? You said you sang poetry with robots in Tokyo. We heard that already. So you had tea with terrorists in Sri Lanka. Okay, that's strange as well. Celebrated Christmas 2000 in Bethlehem with a PLO, which is also quite, it sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? And you have still a little art gallery in Paris. Is it still existing?
No, it was a 3-year project really,
okay.
And I can see you've been digging a lot through my personal background, separate from Botanic and CTOK, and so really a lot of this. What happens if I have to summarize it for you is to say that I have a love-hate relationship with computers. And so what I will do is I will dig deeply into understanding how software works, and then I'll try to dig deeply into understanding how people work. Now, as an American, when September 11th of 2001 happened, I just was frustrated because everyone's like, terrorist, and so I decided, well, I'll go talk to terrorists and find out really who are they. If everyone's talking about Bigfoot with the Loch Ness Monster, you might have an inclination to go talk to them. So I like to go to the source of the data, but really at the heart of it all, I am a writer and a painter, and I explore And then over the last 8 years, I've really been focusing on Botanic and seed token. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was just the conflict I saw when I was reading through your bio, and I found it quite amazing. So on the one hand, you're an expert in artificial intelligence, and this is quite, it's not artificial, it's so natural what you're doing. It's a human-like. So that sounds like a huge contradiction, as you said, the hate-love relationship. Today we will talk a little bit more about bots. And of course I would like to get more insights in about how you think about bots today. So before we started talking to each other, I just had a short round here asking if people have experience here in the audience with bots. And we have 2 developers of bots here. The rest is marketing. Is that right? Are you in marketing? Who's marketing? Campaigning, not marketing. A few marketing. What else do we have here? Just interested?
MBA
What?
final project and dissertation.
You're writing a dissertation.
Yeah, final project like an MBA final project and dissertation.
Okay, on
And
bots?
part of it. Oh, it's a little bit difficult topic to explain in one sentence. Like it's proposing an ecosystem for a decentralized ecosystem for a scheme which can rate products and organization in an easy way for like 3 criteria, like if the product really has a market, if it's a new product, if the business is conducted, you could say like honestly, or now they should translate it to sustainable, and if they know telling their story. And there's those 3 rules for successful business. We just found out that now.
Okay. It was probably not loud enough for you to hear. But just quick check. In what kind of professions are you working? The rest? Consulting. Consulting. IT. So who's IT? A lot of people. Okay. So do you have to deal with bots? Do you have to make an opinion about bots because you might use it in the company? Do you have to consult internally if bots might be interesting?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Short answer. Next. Long question. So when I was asking in the beginning, we heard some frustrating experiences with bots. It was just like from a consumer perspective, just you ask a question which refer to the customer service, call the customer service refers it back basically to the bot again. So it's just like circling around in the circle. But it was frustrating. We heard from someone talking about using bots in campaigning, in political campaigns, and talking about the difficulties in training bots. But it was also more like talking about bots and rule-based programming. So if you look at bots today, what kind of applications from your perspective do make sense in what context?
Yeah. You know, I think context is really the key here. Artificial intelligence is something I'm not really sure what it means. I mean, the word intelligence is the most vague part of this, but the artificial part seems to have to do with artifice, or the ways in which we make things, or perhaps even in art. And so the context and the meaning of the interaction is what's most important. And I think that I built my first chatbot in 2001, and over the years we've seen technical improvements, but what is commonly overlooked is the end user needs. And in order to build a good bot, what you need to do is begin with what that end user will be doing. And the customer relations cycle that you were talking about, where it gets handed back to the bot, and then back to the person, and back to the bot, I would imagine that in each of those interactions, we can find that there is probably a lost sense of context. So whenever a bot is being built, and I'll expand the definition of bot in a little bit, we need to first understand really what the user needs to accomplish, what are their tasks, how do they understand the value of the system, and how do they know to interact with it, and what can be done. So as an example, the Amazon Alexa, we did some work for Logitech, and we discovered that the Alexa is used 85% of the time just to play music. People see it as a speaker, and so they associate music with it, and they overlook the 30,000 other skills that it's capable of performing. And that's a user experience problem. So we really approach the design of bots from that end user perspective first, and then we bring in the tools to make sure that we're serving the functionality. Does that make sense?
I hope so.
And also, if I'm, please tell me, I appreciate speaking English. If you prefer, I could do this in French as well, but I'll try to speak a little bit slower. Excuse me.
Okay, so to people with French, I would have problems, sorry. No, I think it's fine with English, okay? But can we just talk again a little bit about the use cases you think where chatbots really make sense?
Well, we have in the last 7 years deployed bots in the health and wellness space, in the financial use case, in mobility, entertainment, and education. And in each of these environments, we have very different representations, whether the bot is text or whether it has a voice or a face. And we also have radically different knowledge base, what the bot is capable of talking about. So to say, does it make sense? What we have to do is we have to identify what it is the task that's trying to be accomplished, and how do we measure success within that task. So for example, right now we're building a bot with Monash University that's there for kids that are troubled. And they need someone really to listen to them, to say, oh, I hate my parents or something like that. And they want to know that the environment is safe and that they can speak with a system that's not going to be judging them. So far, in the last 2 months, we found some success, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, so you're back again, so it's fine. Just a short interruption. I think we got the most important stuff. The interesting part, if you have been a little bit talking about the process of how you build bots. We heard similar things from one of the developers here. So it's just not like, hey, we build a bot, put it out there, and let people play with it. So you have obviously some part of where you really do interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what I can do here is I can share my screen. There's a couple things that I'd like to show you, but in this instance here, let's see if this is visible enough to everybody in the room. We have a process by which we go through in which it's very user-focused, right? We begin with the discovery, and we really ask, what is the problem that we're trying to solve for the end user and for our customer? And we go into a period of research. We have, after a hypothesis has been developed, we take field research questions out, and we do market research and user research and market analysis documentation and field observation notes, and then we have use cases, and then finally we get down to whether there are hardware fabrication requirements. And at that point, when the research is done, then we hand it off to the design. So that then we have design recommendations. And then we go through the whole design process. And then we begin building the bot, the chatbot, if you will. So yes, simply put, to build a bot properly requires a tremendous amount of understanding of who the user will be, what they will be doing, and the most appropriate design. And then we go into iterative prototyping. And that's very important because then you have to see, is this bot answering the questions that need to be answered? Is that helpful, Stephen?
Yeah, definitely. Just one question before we continue. The slide we can currently see, is it something which I can put up on the website afterwards?
Yes, absolutely. Just let me know of everything we go through today. Let me know, and I'm happy to send over any of these materials. It's stuff that we're very proud of, and it's taken us almost a decade to develop this stuff. So yeah, we're happy to share it. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. So quicker work for us then. That's nice. Looking at what you're showing here, it sounds like a long cycle of development. What's a typical time period? That came out of a sudden. It's dangerous here. Sorry. So as a moderator, you have a dangerous life sometimes. Just coming back to the cycle. If you just talking about the details, how long does such a project or cycle actually consume time? How long does it take usually?
Yeah, it really varies on the specific type of build we're doing, but I would say